Remember, guys, you can always make a donation to the Hypothetically podcast at willnoonan.com/podcast. Hit the donate button. That takes you right to PayPal, where you can make a donation. Last week, we got a new top donation from Mark McNabb, $200. Went straight into the podcast, straight into paying the bills. And thank you so much, Mark McNabb, for making that donation. You too can donate and have your name read on the podcast. Just go to willnoonan.com, click on podcast, click on donate, and you can figure that shit out. It's super easy. It's a great cause. It's a tax write-off, and I could use the dough. So thank you very much, and here's the show. Not a bad advertisement. Battery's getting low on this bitch. I should replace it. Let's go. This is turning into one of the weirdest shows I've ever done. It really is.
Catch me if you can, goddammit. Catch me if you can. You hear me?
Will Noonan's so funny and I'm after him, so I guess I'm after Noonan.
You're listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. Thank you for listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan. That's me. I'm coming at you right now. I'm on 95 North. I'm heading to a gig in a town you've never heard of, motherfuckers. Gardner, Massachusetts. Pretty easy gig tonight. Not much to say, but I'm running a little late. Not really late. The show will not have started when I get there, but I'd like to be there a half hour before the show starts, but probably only will be there about an hour. About 15 minutes before the show starts. Sorry, I was distracted. Just drove by a bunch of deer on 95. That's rare. It never happens. They didn't look too good either. You can tell how good a deer is eaten by what it looks like, and these ones just look kind of brown and shitty. So what's going on in your lives, everybody? In your lives? Not much to report this week, I guess. Some interesting stuff happened during the week, but we got a lot to talk about. I got some questions from the Twitter people and all kinds of topics to talk about, so I'm just going to get started and talk with y'all while I drive to this fucking mediocre gig I'm going to do in Gardner, Massachusetts. So last weekend, I think we finally got our final little bit of snow here in Boston, Massachusetts, in New England. I think so. I mean, I'd be really surprised if it snows a lot more in April. And this might not matter to a lot of you, but it matters to me because it affects my fucking work. It affects my travel. It affects the amount of shows I have and getting canceled and just not getting paid for a week or something. Shit happens when you're a comedian and it snows. We don't have like contracts for most of these gigs where we get paid no matter what. Sometimes you do, but not usually. So anyway, I feel like kind of a jackass because I had a show last Friday in Connecticut, right? And I'm not going to lie to y'all motherfuckers. Feeling kind of African American today, so you might get some of that. I ain't gonna lie to y'all motherfuckers. I done fucked up, I think, a little bit last weekend with canceling a gig myself. I was supposed to go down to Connecticut, some town like kind of near Hartford or New Haven, I think. Those towns are like an hour apart, but somewhere in like the middle of fucking Connecticut. And, you know, looking forward to doing the gig. There's nothing wrong with the gig itself. But I'm fucking a little bit wary of driving in the snow nowadays. Back when I first started doing stand-up, I was always driving in the snow. I didn't give a fuck. I didn't think, it was that hard. And it really wasn't. Driving in the snow is not that hard until you almost get killed doing it a few times. And then you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Some shows, you're the headliner and it's a big deal and there's nothing else you can do but get there. But other times you're like, is it really worth almost fucking dying to go to a show that might even get canceled when I'm on the way there, or might get canceled when it might show up and only 4 people come. You know, and I don't usually cancel my own gigs very often, but I have done it in the past. And to be honest, I think I've only done it twice. And both times I regretted it because it ended up not snowing as much as I thought it was going to snow. But I get fucking freaked out by the weather reports. But this time it's on me, motherfuckers, because I love my weather app, Dark Sky. I've talked about it on this podcast before. Because all year, when the people on the news were telling me it was going to be, 3 feet of snow, 2 feet of snow, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be snowmageddon, it's going to be horrible. Like, my little Dark Sky app would just be like, 4 to 5 inches. High winds. Don't worry about it. And I would tell people that, and it made me look smart like 30 times this year. My app was always right when it came to the snow, and the news was always overblowing it. This time, though, I had a different conundrum to kind of deal with, because the news people were kind of going, it might hit us, it might not. Some parts might get a lot of snow, some parts might not. It's kind of tough to tell right now. I'm looking at Dark Sky, and it's telling me we're getting 10 to 14 inches in Boston. We're getting, basically I typed in every, decent city from Boston to where I was going. And I couldn't find a way that I would be driving there without driving through, a huge fucking blizzard. Like, every town, I looked up Providence, fucking New London. Every place was 10 to 14 inches, 17 inches. Some of them were insane. So I'm like, fuck, man. What do I do here? The news people are saying it might not be that bad, but this app, which has been correct a million fucking times, is saying it's going to be brutal. So I decided to just go with my gut. I was like, how do I feel? How do I feel about this? What's my feeling? And my gut feeling was it was going to be brutal. It was going to be a shitty fucking drive. And best to not do it. So I found my own replacement for the gig, and I guess he ended up doing a fucking awesome job. So shout out to John Romanoff, Connecticut comic. He's helped me out a few times when I either had to cancel something because of a commercial shoot or because of who knows. But John has been a great filler-inner a few times when I've needed him to in Connecticut. So thank you, John. It's even better when the person you get kills, which I heard he did. So that way no one's really mad. But I felt stupid about it because, I just stayed in Boston and hung out with Pat, and it was not really snowing that hard. It stopped super early in the night, and none of the fucking scariness that my app said was going to happen really happened anywhere along the way. I guess some people did get a little bit of snow, but I definitely could have driven through it. So I feel pretty bad. I don't feel that bad about it, but I felt bad about it. I'm over it. But, you got to do what you got to do, I guess. You got to have some sort of, what the fuck? The guy's texting me. I'm on the way to a gig right now. Oh. I hate it when guys do this. They scare the shit out of you. I'm like, when I get a text on the way to a gig, I expect it to say, where are you? Not I'm getting some lunch. You around? You in the city? It's the gig starts in an hour, man. That text I just got scared the shit out of me because I thought it was going to say, where the fuck are you? It's a 7 o'clock show. And that would have been scary, but it wasn't. But yeah, you gotta be, I feel like this is becoming a theme on this podcast lately. Is me not doing as much stupid shit as I used to do, or me not taking as much shit as I used to do. But I want to walk that line carefully. I don't want anyone to think I'm getting a little too big for my britches over here. I'm still just a comedian. I still do plenty of shitty things, but I'm just trying to choose which shitty things I want to do nowadays, That's all. But yeah, man, I know a couple people have come up to me lately at shows and been like, man, do you still like acting at all? You've been complaining about acting a lot on your podcast. And it was interesting because I hadn't even really thought about that too much myself. But when people kept bringing it up to me, I was like, yeah, maybe I don't. Like, I think I do like acting a lot. I like when I did those German movies, I really enjoyed it. I've done things that I really enjoy, but I just think lately the kind of shit I've been doing, the last like 2 out of the last 3 commercials I did were bad experiences. So like I think I was just kind of on a roll of being like, man, this can be a bummer too. That's all, you know? And I realize like there's people out there who like cannot believe that I fucking complain about working with directors or working with you know, people and stuff like that. But it's hard to explain, man. When you're a stand-up comic, life is really great, man. Like right now I'm going to drive to a gig. I'm going to get up in front of like 500 people. I'm going to tell them some shit I made up off the top of my head. Some of it, you know, off the top of my head right there, but some of it like weeks, months, even a year ago, right? I'm going to get instant gratification. I'm going to get love and smiles, and people are going to be fucking spitting their drinks out, and it's fantastic. It's like a heartwarming, awesome experience to do stand-up comedy and get a good response. And then you go to work on a film set, and it takes like 12 hours to do something that should take like 5 or 6. Everyone's phony and full of shit. You can never tell who's lying to you straight to your face. You can never tell like if people are being real. It's a totally different ball game, man. Like to the point where like I didn't even really know. You know, I grew up. I acted before I did stand up, and I think I had some long days and shit. But I was not really a professional. And I didn't really understand like what it is. And I think a lot of people maybe are disenchanted once they like get to filming stuff. They're like, damn, this is a fucking shitty process that could be a lot quicker. I do not know why things take the way. But like film is like a very old fashioned business where like they don't like to change things very often. You know, they love new technology, but they don't really love, like, changing the protocols. Like, why are we still auditioning for things, like, in person? I think about that all the time. Like, this whole world is perfectly set up to just, like, send in videos of yourself or, you know, have a conversation with someone via FaceTime or Skype, or for them to be able to quickly and easily watch everything you've ever done before and maybe like piece together some sort of opinion of what your talent is from that. And I don't mean like famous people. I mean like anybody. Like you could easily watch most of my commercials on YouTube and shit like that, or watch my acting. Like it's so easy to like not be in the same room with someone nowadays. But like auditioning, you still gotta like drive all over the fucking place, spend 10 minutes being normal, acting, and then leaving. And hoping that you get it, but most likely not. Statistically, you're not going to get it most of the time. So it's kind of a fucking... Sometimes I'm at odds with it, you know? I'm like, man, I really love stand-up. That's why I work so hard on it, and that's what I do. Every time I do a commercial, I kind of feel like I'm just doing this for money. Like, I'm not having any fun here. And I feel like that's kind of, like, going to change once I do something else with someone else. Because I think I've just been working with bad people lately, and I've been kind of like feeling like, oh man, this isn't that fun. But some people you do work with who are really fun, but it's just weird. But people are right. Like I don't even know how I feel about it, because I had a big audition this week for a movie and did the callback yesterday. So I'm like waiting to hear if I got a part in this movie, and it's like I don't care either way, because like if I get it, I'll be happy because I'm like, cool, being in a movie. But if I don't get it, I'll be like, good. I don't have to fucking get up early and spend most of my day trying to figure out, like, how to kill time. And, you know, I'm spoiled because, like, people with a regular job, they're like, oh, 12 hours on a film set. Try doing 12 hours in a fucking iron working shop, or try and do 12 hours in a fucking cubicle, dickhead. It's like, yeah, it's true. I understand all that, but I didn't get into this stand-up comedy thing to be miserable all day. I got into it to smoke pot all day and have fun at night. Oh, I just missed my exit talking to you fucks. Damn it. It's okay, though. I'll be okay. Oh, boy. Just only added 2 minutes to my trip. No problems. No problems. But yeah, I don't want anyone to think I don't like acting, but I just think with each like passing day, I just want to do my own stuff. I just want to do this podcast and maybe like some writing and just work on my fucking stand-up. Like I just every time I gotta collaborate on these commercials, it blows, and every time. You know what? Who the fuck am I? What am I saying right now? That's not true. I've had some great times making commercials. Some really good times. Doing the fucking, the one with Mike Zuccola. We did one for like, where we played like ticket scalpers, and that was like super fun. I loved it. That was a fun day. Sometimes it is a fun day. I'm just being a shit because I haven't been having fun making commercials lately, and I don't really like... I've been auditioning for things since I was 13, 14 years old. It's like 20 years. And, I'm just sick of the attitude. I'm sick of going into audition rooms and nothing changes, It's just like some casting directors are great and some of them are shitty, and sometimes it's like a pleasant experience and sometimes it's a miserable one. I guess that's life, right? But sometimes when you're like... going back and forth from like headlining comedy shows, doing an hour of material that you wrote, having a great time doing it, having a great time talking with people about it, having like, it's just a true like almost artistic experience. I know that's kind of lame, but whatever it is. And then, and you don't even get paid that much a lot of the time. And then you go do this super high paying thing with all these so-called like pros, and all this shit is supposed to be like perfect, and it's just kind of like, man, this is a fucking clusterfuck. And I don't know, that whole thing kind of went nowhere. But a lot of people have just been asking me if I still like acting, and I do, but I think I just gotta be a little more like, just not about like, I'll fucking do anything, just do anything is put in front of me. I gotta do at least one thing once in a while just for myself, a sketch or short film or someone else's indie or some fucking shit, because, selling cars and fucking chewing gum, shit like that, just ain't that fucking cool, man. I remember when I was like in acting school, and I was like 18, 19, I was like, I will never do a commercial, because once you do commercials, you're stuck there. And I still think that was like an idiotic thought. And, the naivete of youth, the bravado of youth. But I will say I was sort of right. Like, in a sense. I don't think I was right in the sense of like, oh man, you're stuck in commercials if you do them. I don't think that's fucking true, especially since I'm a comic. But I think I was right when I said I wouldn't have that much fun. I don't even fucking know. This podcast is not that good, guys. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. You're feeling it. Let's just get to some questions from... oh, wait, no, I still got more to talk about. So, last weekend, though... So, I did cancel Friday. I felt shitty about it. What are you going to do? But I got 3 shows on Saturday that I was very excited about. April Fool's Day was last Saturday. 3 shows in one day. First one was at 2 p.m. And like I said... It was a snowstorm. It wasn't accumulating too much. We didn't have like massive amounts of snow. We didn't have like 2 or 3 feet, but we did have like 5 to 6 inches of shitty, kind of slushy, cold, nasty snow. So I had this show at 2 p.m. at Laugh Boston, and I was not expecting it to be very crowded or for anyone to even be there, because I'm like, who the fuck is going to a 2 o'clock show during a snowstorm when you don't even want to walk like to get the mail right now? It's so shitty outside. But boy, was I wrong again, motherfuckers. This podcast should be called I'm Fucking Wrong a Lot, because this is another time I was totally wrong. Sold out. The opposite of not a lot of people. Sold the fuck out. It was me, Kelly McFarland, Mike Whitman, Lamont Price, Chris Penny, and who else? I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Lamont Price, Chris Penny, Kelly McFarland, myself, Mike Whitman. That's 5. That may have been it. I remember there was no women. That was the big thing I remember. I mean, only one woman. Kelly Mack, who's lost a lot of weight, so she's less of a woman. Or no, she's not less of a woman, but she's less woman than she used to be. God, I hope she never hears that. I love Kelly with all my heart and soul. But yeah, that was a really cool time. Killed. Oh, damn it. I wouldn't say I killed, but good enough. For 2 p.m. it was killing. I never had such a good time at 2 p.m. in the afternoon doing stand-up. And set me on a good vibe for the rest of the day. But the snow did fuck me. My 10 o'clock show did end up getting canceled. Not a lot of tickets sold. Not a lot of people wanting to go out late at night on a snowstorm day. And I was headlining it, and I just headlined Nick's Comedy Stop a week prior. And I don't think I'm that fucking famous yet where I can sell out a lot of places in the same city 2 weeks apart. But super bummed that got canceled, but I had an 8 o'clock show, which was a little bit of a throwback show. If you've been a long time listener to this podcast, you know that I've paid my dues. I've paid my dues in stand-up comedy. I've spent many hours opening up for what you would call the legends of New England comedy. You know, the guys who were Boston Bulldogs of comedy in the 1980s and 90s. And, overall bad motherfuckers. I used to complain a lot on the podcast about how these guys would talk about, just tell me the same 15 stories just over and over and over. I used to complain about it constantly on this podcast. Old-time listeners will know. So I haven't had a gig like that in a long time. Luckily, been headlining my own shows and whatnot, and things have been going good in that direction. And, I open for people, but they've been, like, bigger than just legends of New England. But every now and then, I do work with a legend of New England, like Tony V, and he's exactly not these guys. Tony V's the fucking... Tony V and Jimmy Dunn, they don't talk about the old days too much. They don't fucking, like, tell you how shitty it is now and how great things were. They're just, like, living life, keeping it going, having fun. Speaking of those two guys, they just got a new podcast of their own called Two Boston Guys Whipping Up a Pie, I think it's called, or Cooking Up a Pie or something. And it's Jimmy Dunn and Tony V. Check it out, especially if you're a Boston comic. You should know who these guys are and what they're about. Jimmy is just... I've interviewed him on this podcast before. A lot of people tell me it's their favorite episode, but Jimmy Dunn is just... Can't say enough about how much he's helped me in this game. You know, not just in, like, fucking... help me, like, by straight up giving me gigs and, like, introducing me to people, but, like, I call him Comedy Veritek because when I'm having a problem, he's the guy I call, man, to help me with my problem. And he's good like that. And Jimmy's a wise fucking comedian. So is Tony V. I've called them both with problems before. But check out their podcast. And I paint all these guys with like the same brush, but I love a lot of them. I love Steve Sweeney. I love Lenny Clark. But sometimes I get sick of talking to these guys like when they get into a certain mode, especially when 2 or 3 of them get together and they haven't seen each other in a while. They start talking about the 80s and 90s and like how fucking cool comedy was and how much money they made and how many houses they bought with the fucking money they made. And, good for them. And I'm sure it's like 80% true. And I'm sure those were great times. And believe me, there was a time in my life when I like loved talking about that shit all the time, listening to those guys talk about that shit. But 7 years in Boston, you hear all the stories, you hear like different versions of them, so there's a lot of like fucking hyperbole going on. And it's always the same. It's like you're working in some town, you're working in Marlboro, one guy shows up and he's like, oh, there used to be a club named Sammy's Ding Dong here. We used to do it every Tuesday. And then the next guy shows up and he's like, Johnny, remember Sammy's Ding Dong? Do you remember that? And then the other guy goes like, oh, Will, you won't even believe it. Me, him, and another guy. We showed up at Johnny's Ding Dong at 8 a.m. Johnny was he was wiping up the steps. And we said, Johnny, believe it or not, we are 3 of the funniest comics in the world, and we are headlining your club tonight, whether you like it or not. And he was like, okay. So we came back at 7. I'd only been doing comedy for 2 weeks. I went straight to headliner. We each made $7,000. We did 14 more shows that night. I lived in a water tower on top of the John Hancock building for $150 a month. And we did a lot of coke and got laid too. You know, it's just like, okay. I don't understand it. I'm sick of hearing about it. Thank you. So that was my, like, Saturday night gig. But, you know, I don't want to say who I was working with because they're good guys. And I actually like both the guys, but they did have that conversation. And I was like, enough. I get it. The 80s were awesome for comics in Boston. Whiny bitch. Will Noonan, you're a whiny bitch. You don't like acting. You don't like working with nice guys. What else you want to fucking complain about? I'll tell ya. Let's talk about, I don't want to talk about politics, but I'm going to kind of talk about politics a little bit. And I'm not going to force any of my politics on anybody. I just want to openly discuss a couple things because I did ask for questions and a couple people said, let's talk about what's going on in the world today, because there's a big day today. President Donald Trump shot some missiles off last night, about 56 of them. And the missiles went off to Syria and hit a Syrian airbase, killed six guys, took out some planes, and stuff like that. So that's the question I got. But the question reminded me of something that happened to me recently. And this is what I mean about talking politics. I'm not going to get into, like, who should do what, man? And who should fucking do this, man? And if people just did that, then everything would be all right, man. I'm not going to do that shit to you guys. But I am going to kind of tell you a little story about something that I did that I'm not really proud of. Or I'm not really, like, 100%. Oh, fuck it. I'll just tell the story, Will. You don't need to tell us every feeling you had about it ever. So, here's the deal. Few months back, somewhere around the time I was last on Cumia, so like maybe a month and a half, right after Trump got elected and the world was in a chaotic place. No one knew what was going on. Not like now where everyone's just totally fucking calm. But I remember I was having a conversation with a friend, and in a public place, and I was talking to him about in a comedy place, a comedy club, right? I'm talking to him about refugees, and I was like, actually, I'm not one of those people who really thinks he knows about this stuff. Like, I have opinions, sure, from what I hear and from what I read. But I'm not really, that's kind of not my lane. I'm a fucking stand-up comedian. I don't even like shooting fucking commercials, guys. I'm not going to pretend like I understand the entire world and how politics work and how countries work, all that stuff. I understand that it's pretty intricate and there's a lot more to it than what you see on the surface. But I also, you know, like any human being, I have fears, I have doubts, I have you know, things I think about. Sometimes I get stoned. I think about them a little too much. You know, sometimes I get stoned. I think about things a little bit too much. So I'm hanging out in the comedy club, and I'm talking with a couple guys, a couple comics, and I started talking about refugees and some fears I have about refugees. Not in the sense of going like, dude, this is what we gotta do because they're gonna do this. More in the sense of like me being like, what do you guys think about these refugees? Because I'm kind of like, I don't know, because it kind of seems like in France and in Germany there's some problems, and I understand we got to do the right thing, but you know, basically that was like the tone of the conversation. Was I was a little bit trepidatious about letting in shitloads of Syrian refugees because I'm like, we just don't know, we can't, like, you know, kind of ignorantly being like, how are we going to vet these people? How are we going to know who's good and who's bad? You know, like, I don't want any more fucking problems here in America, right? And just having a discussion, though. I was actually looking for someone to kind of educate me a little bit. I don't know why I thought a comedy club discussion would be the place to do that. But I just like to talk things out. That's why I have a podcast where I'm the only guy on it. I like to talk things out, man. It makes me feel good. Sometimes, like, when you just let the monkey in your head yap, yap, yap all day, that's where you get, too far gone to save yourself. You need to talk things out. So I don't think I did anything wrong. I definitely said some things that were incorrect. I was like, well, what about this thing that happened in Sweden, or here or there? And a couple people were like, those people live there. There's all kinds of things. But what really, I just had a discussion where I said, of all the things going on in the world right now, one of the things I'm slightly worried about is refugees from Syria coming to America. And not even really like being terrorists, but like more like just kind of like, I guess basically being terrorists. I can't really spin that one. I don't like, my basic point was, I know a lot of people who listen to this wouldn't see me as like some great feminist, and I don't think I am, but I do like women enough and respect women enough that I don't like to see them sort of subjugated and made to wear burqas, and I know a lot of those women love wearing a burqa and they do it proudly, but a lot of those traditions go back to a time where you wouldn't be killed. You would be killed if you didn't. So maybe you've been raised to love it. I don't fucking know. I'm not going to pretend to understand all the traditions of Islam and all that stuff, but I guess I was kind of being a little bit of an uninformed dickhead, running his mouth at a comedy club, saying, I don't know. I was high as fuck. I'm like, I just don't know about refugees, man. But I'm not being recorded. I'm not on a podcast or anything. I'm just talking some shit out. Like I said, not one of my coolest moments. So I thought that way for like a couple weeks, and then I ended up going on the Anthony Cumia show and talking with Mike Baker from the former CIA agent who had been on, he's been on Rogan, he's been on Cumia and Opie and Anthony a million times. I've heard him a million times. Guy I respect a great fucking deal. And I just asked him straight up. I'm like, dude, should I be worried about this refugee situation or not? This is a man who's been to Syria, knows what it's all about. And he's like, no, man. He's like, these people, they just want to live their lives. They're not. You could even say they were better than like people in Iraq, because a lot of people in Iraq were like, I just want to see which side wins and I'll go on that side. That's a survival technique too. But he's like, these Syrian refugees, man, they don't even fucking know. They're caught up in this shit and they just want to live and have their life. So hearing it from him and hearing him say that and kind of discussing my fears with him on air and off air sort of like changed the way I felt about that, right? I'm like, okay, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do this the right way. I mean, we are America. We're supposed to be like the fucking good guys letting people in, right? So I just changed, And my point here is that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being wrong, thinking about it, and then changing your opinion. I think there's a big thing now where people don't want to look like flip-floppers, which is a fucking stupid term invented by politicians to embarrass other politicians. But it's not meant for regular fucks. But because of Facebook and Twitter and all this shit, everyone feels like they have a public persona and a private persona. And everyone feels like they have to put their 2 cents out on every big story or big point. And then, like politicians now, people are like, well, I might not even think that way anymore or feel that way, but I've taken my stance and now I got to stick by it or else people will think I'm a flip-flopper. Gotta say, not to toot my own horn, but I've never fucking lived my life that way because I think it's idiotic. I think it's idiotic to live your life that way. And it's probably a big reason why things are as fucked up as they are right now, because people want to win instead of, people. It's like when you're in an argument with your girlfriend or your wife or your boyfriend or your husband. You're arguing, and at a certain point, it isn't about what you're arguing about at all anymore. It's about winning or losing, and one of you is going to come out of this thing on top. And that's where real shitty relationships get real shitty, is when you're just battling. I dated a chick like that for a long time who she just wanted to win. She couldn't give a fuck if we resolved whatever issue we were talking about. She just wanted to outfight me. And I'm just like, fuck that shit, So the reason why I kind of remembered this was because a guy overheard us having this conversation at the comedy club, and then later on mentioned it to me. Like, man, I thought it was kind of fucked up that you said that. And I was like, well, I don't feel that way anymore. I was just having like a discussion. And he was like, oh, that's good, because I totally thought you had like a really fucked up view about Muslims. And I was kind of like, well, that's a little off the mark, because I was just having a conversation where I was sort of openly discussing fears and openly discussing what I was thinking with other people, and then being kind of like, Will, you're kind of off on this, you're kind of right on this, you're kind of off on this, and taking a couple weeks to figure out how I really felt about it, which is now I think we should be letting in refugees. And we might have some problems, but I think overall it's a good thing. That's what we should do. That's what America's about. We're about being like, doing the right thing when everyone else is doing fucked up shit. At least that's what we're supposed to be all about, right? So I encourage you to do the same thing, like, don't feel like you have to fucking stick by your opinion that you have for the rest of your life, because you don't want to look weak in some way or like some sort of flip-flopper, because that is just total bullshit, man. Smart people change their opinions because that's what learning is, when you don't know something at all, and then you learn, like when you don't know how to read and then you learn how to read, things open up to you. You've added to your life by learning how to read. Exploration is good. If you just stay within the bubble that you're already in, never go anyplace else or try and figure out anything else, or try and fucking think outside of like I don't know. I'm doing a lot of like I'm fishtailing off a lot today, man. I'm kind of running out of points with these arguments or whatever the fuck I'm talking about. I really get wary about talking politics. I even promised I wouldn't, but I kind of feel like this isn't really talking politics right now. I'm not telling you guys what you should do with your lives. Well, I guess I kind of am. I'm telling you to be more open, but you know what I'm saying. Just fucking stick with me on this, huh? Stick with me on this. But it sort of got me really mad at first when I heard that this guy thought that about me, but really what made me mad was I wasn't proud of myself in that moment when I was talking about that, because really I was letting fear run the show. And it was because it was just recently after Trump had been elected, and I had no idea what was going to happen with the country. Not that we still do, but at those days, it kind of felt like the world was going to explode at any second. And so I think I was salty about it being brought up, because I was like, hey man, I came around on that, and please don't bring up like stupid shit I said once that I don't even agree with anymore. But it also just got me thinking, maybe it's not so bad, because it just shows that like you can change. You can have a thought, you can think something through, you can change. And I go back and forth on shit all the time, man. I might go the other way on this. There was a attack in Sweden today. They've been as great as anyone about letting in refugees, and they had a big problem today. So there's no easy answers to any of this shit. But I don't know. I felt like that was worth talking about, because I thought it was kind of like, I just noticed this trend where it's like, oh, this guy changed his opinion. Like, what a total piece of shit. It's like, well, I mean, if you don't ever change your opinion, you're still a piece of shit. So either way, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But Joe West, top new enthusiast, been here since the beginning almost. He was like, Noonan, let's talk about the Syria missile strike. How do you feel? Let's talk about it. Talk it up, talk it down, talk what you want to do. So if you get mad about this next statement, blame Joe West, not me. But I'll tell you what my initial thought was. I had like two feelings about it when I first saw the news. First of all, it was kind of funny because me and Pat were we decided to stay in and watch a movie. We were watching X-Men Apocalypse, which I thought was very good. It's about a 2.5-hour movie. And then it ended, and I put on X-Men. No, I put on YouTube, or opened up YouTube and Twitter and shit after watching the movie. And it was like, Trump has bombed a country. Trump has missile strike launched by Trump. So my first thought was like, wow, fucking A, man. Every single day is something in this world right now in 2017. Every single day is something crazy. My second thought was, didn't this guy like campaign over and over and over again about saying how he wasn't going to get involved in Middle Eastern bullshit and how like put America first and all this stuff? That was my first thought. And then my third thought was, this is just like a distraction to get people to stop paying attention to the fact that he's being investigated and a lot of his cabinet is being investigated. And that's something I can say I've thought about every single president, Republican or Democrat, as long as I've been like a human who can remember things. Clinton did it, Obama did it, George W. Bush did it a lot. And it would be, something would be going on that was bad. They'd be being investigated, or they'd have some low approval ratings or something. Usually the approval ratings had sunk to an all-time low because of some sort of scandal or rift. And then before you knew it, they'd be like, you know what? We just can't stand for this. We can't stand for this type of destruction anymore in these other countries. And I do think chemical weapons are the worst. But let's not forget, we dropped a nuclear weapon on Japan twice and killed a shitload of innocent fucking people. Babies, little babies, as Donald Trump said many times about Syria. Little babies. But it's a messy thing, and that's, like I said earlier, I'm not pretending to understand what really happens with government, because there's so much at play and so many different things and so many little secrets we don't know. But I don't know, it can get depressing to wonder, like, does Trump really want to help Syria, or is this a political move only, or is this just more collusion between Russia and the US, like, so we all get deals on Syrian oil? Like, you just can never know, like, whether you're watching a documentary or a fucking drama when you're watching, the president of the United States right now. Or really ever. Let's not act like the Kennedys weren't accused of rigging elections. Let's not act like a bunch of people haven't done a lot of shady shit to get elected and be in government. So I'm not saying Donald Trump's some great fucking guy, but a lot of this is nothing new. But what I will say is, I can't remember a time in my life where it's been such a daily, like something new every single day. Sometimes two things in a day. Within 24 hours, this guy bombed a country, got a guy elected to the fucking Supreme Court, and he's being investigated. That's a lot. So I guess that's that, man. Let's get off of this fucking political bullshit. But it's just, it kind of made me feel calm in a weird way, because I was like, it's the first like semi-presidential thing Donald Trump has really done, which is sad. Well, at least he's doing normal shit like bombing other countries. Am I right? That's kind of what we do here in America. But if you've been listening since the election itself, that's all I just want things to go back to normal, and we are far from fucking normal right now. And that's all I got to say about that. Let's go to Twitter, read some fun light questions we got from Twitter today. Pulling up my phone, driving 60 miles per hour with my leg. All right, first one I'm going to read from George Kapanis from Boston. Why don't you have an open micer on the show? Could be interesting. You probably would get smoked up too. Great idea. I don't know if George himself is an open micer. I would have him on. I would actually kind of love to do like a round table with a few open mic guys. Anthony Massa would definitely be a dude that I'd want to. I've been thinking about having on this show a lot lately, because I think he's right there in the scene right now, and he's doing a mic every single night, and just hustling, and I think he probably really knows what's going on. So I've been thinking about asking Anthony Massa to do an interview. I bet he'd say yes. Another guy, he's not really an open micer anymore, but Terrence Pennington is another dude from Boston, if you know him. He's going to be on the show soon, too. He was on my old Dig radio show a lot, and he's just a super funny guy. But yeah, George, I think that's a great fucking idea. If anyone wants to volunteer, hit me up, willnoon.com, and we can talk about it. Ryan Hanley, fantastic improviser. If I'm thinking of... Yeah, that's right. Do you want Tushy or Peen? I want Tushy, bro. Give me that Tushy. Con Williams, Australian comedian. Do you like to party? If he means do I like to do coke, the answer is no. I do not like to do coke. It's exactly the thing I do not ever need in my life, ever. I'm naturally very coked out, naturally pretty energetic and pretty wired and high-strung. Actually, I wouldn't say I'm high-strung, but I can be, what's the word I'm looking for here? I was describing it as uptight. Sometimes I can just be like uptight in my own head. A lot of people, when they find out that I have an anxiety disorder, are like shocked because they only see me at stand-up comedy shows where I'm like usually pretty far from being anxious. I feel very comfortable at work and on stage, so it's really the happiest I am usually. So a lot of people who only know me in comedy are surprised to later hear that I struggle with anxiety occasionally, especially back when I wasn't meditating or running. But what was the fucking point of talking about that again? I don't fucking know. God, it's a real shit show of a podcast. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I feel like this show might not be that good too. I've been kind of lazy this week. Oh yeah. Do I do coke? That's why. Yeah, I don't think coke's a great drug. To be honest, it's funny. Every now and then a girl will tell me. I don't know why they feel the need to tell me this, but every now and then a chick would tell me like, I was totally into you. Or I was totally thinking about trying to fuck you, and now I see you smoking this cigarette, and I just don't want to anymore. I just don't want to fuck anymore. I've had like a handful of chicks say that to me, and I'm like, okay, you don't like smoking. Thanks for the heads up. I don't want to fuck chicks who are that crazy about their choices of who they fuck. I like girls who fuck anyone. No. No. But I do have that. When I see a girl does coke, huge turn off. Cokehead chicks, no fun to hang out with. Cokeheads in general are no fun to hang out with. It's a shitty fucking drug, if we're gonna be honest. Some people can do it. I knew people in New York who could do it like once a year and have some fun with it, do a little tiny bit to stay awake. But I did it a few times in college and stuff, but it was never very appealing to me, and never one of those things where I was like, I really need to get into this. Didn't have that feeling. But the last time I did it was probably over 10 or 15 years ago, and I drank. I was shit-faced, and I think I've told this story a lot, so I'll just make it real quick. I was shit-faced. I was in New York City. I needed to walk a long distance home. So I did like the tiniest little tiny bit of coke, like what they call a bump, a key bump. And I had sworn off coke 2 years prior after having a bad experience, which I've also talked about many times. The bad experience was doing lines of coke with my friend and then getting like a really disturbing phone call. Like this chick called me and she was like, I think I'm pregnant. And it was like right as I was doing coke. And I just kind of realized like, I can't do coke, man, because life still happens when you're doing coke. If you get called with a problem like that when you're shit-faced, it's like you're probably even better at handling it. If you get called when you're stoned, you just sober up instantaneously. But coke was like, I had to now deal with this problem for hours while coked out, and I remember being like, I will never do coke again. Then I fast-forwarded to this party where I'm like shit-faced drunk. I know I'm not going to like be able to make it home without like hurting myself or passing out somewhere. So I did a little tiny bit, and I barely even felt it. And I went home and I actually fell asleep, which if you've ever done coke, you know is hard to do. And that was the last time I ever did it. I've said no to it 1,000 times. It's one of my easiest no's. No's, which is what you used to do coke. But it's one of my easiest no's to say in life is when someone goes, you want to do some coke? I'm like, nope. And not even a little bit of me feels bad about that. I hate coke. So that's my answer to that. Do I party con? The answer is no. Do you still own those speed dealer sunglasses? No. I asked him for a follow-up on that. What sunglasses are that? He meant these mirrored sunglasses I have. I don't have them anymore. I can't hold on to a pair of sunglasses for much more than 2 months. I mean, I've had pairs last longer, but for the most part, I'm good for about 2 months before I lose them, break them, bend them, or, something happens. So I'm a fan of cheap sunglasses. I buy them from gas stations and places like that. But you know what's weird? I haven't been using sunglasses as much. I really have sensitive eyes too, and I've been like a big wearer of sunglasses my whole life. But for some reason, like this year, I haven't been wearing them. Probably because the sun has not been out much for about 6 to 9 months. And thank God it's ending. I feel like it's made me and all my friends fucking miserable pricks. So there you go. There's some questions. I got any more? I thought I had one more. What's a Hot Pocket? Nah, it's a snack food. I guess that's it. Oh, here we go. George already answered. Bring me on. I'll bring cigs, weed, and Dunkin' Donuts. Oh, George, you sound like my kind of guy. I think we've met. I know we've met. I never forget a George. That's my dad's name. It's a great name, George. Great fucking name. So, yeah. It always makes me happy to know that some dudes up here in Boston listen to the podcast. We lost a great one in comedy this week. Don Rickles. I am a big Don Rickles fan. It's kind of silly. In 2017, it's kind of known when a famous person dies, everyone has to act like they were a huge fan. But I really did like Don Rickles. I wouldn't say I was like, he's like an influence on me or some big fucking thing in my life. But, I've been obsessed with comedy my whole life. And one of the big parts of my comedy obsession was the Johnny Carson show. I had the Johnny Carson show DVDs, and I always used to watch him. Even when I was young, I'd watch the reruns of Carson. He was still on and doing shows when I was a kid, but I was pretty young when he retired. But I do remember how much people loved him, and I remember, how and what a high esteem people held him, so I was, a fan. But Don Rickles would go on there and just crush it at all ages. So from a fan's perspective, I always liked Don Rickles, and I thought he was great on Carson. But then I became a comedian myself and sort of realized, how special Don Rickles really is, especially to keep going and keep doing what he's doing and keep, that act going. And that's really cool. But I'll tell you the number one thing, and I bet you'd find a lot of comedians would say the same thing. What I really like about Don Rickles the most and what I find the most impressive is that he worked right up until his 90s. He stayed on stage. He kept doing stand-up, which that we always love here in the stand-up community. That's something we all hope and dream that we'll be doing shows in Las Vegas when we're in our 80s, not on cruise ships, not some no-name motherfucker. There were people out there who were I gotta see Don Rickles before I die. So long, Donnie Ricks. We're gonna miss ya. My joke. Everyone had a joke. And a lot of people were like, so long, Don Rickles, you hockey puck. I was like, talk about taking the first bus on that, everybody. I felt like I had a slightly more original take. I said, I hope Don Rickles' last words were a joke making fun of his doctor's ethnicity. So, boom. Second bus. I got on the second bus. Just the kind of guy I am. We are running out of time. I'm almost to the gig too. I got a little bit of a follow-up from last week. I got an update for you guys. If you listened to last week's show, you heard all about the check engine lights. You heard all about the fucking meter maid that I met and what happened with her and all that shit, right? So, we got an update, guys. I'm going to interview her. She wants to do the show. We're going to do a phone interview. She is real. And I'm going to ask her if she's an angel. And I'm going to tell her how I thought she was an angel. Also, my check engine light, I was about to tell you guys that it's off. Because it was off all day today when I was driving around. And I was happy about that. But I just looked down and it's back on again. So this check engine light turns on and off whenever it feels like it. Car seems to be running fine though. So... but a lot of people were coming up to me this week or emailing me this week about the check engine light and about this meter maid. A lot of people love that story. I love it too. I can't fucking believe it. So if you have anything you'd want me to ask the meter maid or just anything in general you would like to hear on this show, email me directly at willnoonancomedy@gmail.com. willnoonancomedy, one word, @gmail.com. Or... you can just go to my website, willnoonan.com, hit contact, and send me an email directly from there. It's very easy. It's very great to use. A lot of people do it. So that's that. I'd love to hear from you guys all the time, anytime. I like hearing from you. Hit me up, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And most importantly, support the show. Tell your friends. I got a lot of feedback last week after telling everyone at the end of the show, kind of making a hard pitch that we're doing great, but we could be doing better. We need to grow a little bit more to compete with some of these other podcasts. And I'm trying to monetize this thing a little bit more. I don't want to just sell you guys crap or fill this show with ads. I'd love to just keep it going the way we have been, which is from donations. So you can donate to this podcast at willnoonan.com/podcast. Or you can email me. I'll send you the link, all that shit. But also, I'm thinking about giving some incentives. Last week we had Mark McNabb give $200, and I think he should get something for that. I did thank him on Twitter, but I think he should get something. So I'm going to put his name in the podcast description. And I'm thinking I'm going to put, like on Twitch, I'm going to put a top donator spot in my Twitter bio. And so if you can top the 200 Mark McNabb gave, your name will be there. Your Twitter name will be in my Twitter profile and in this podcast description. So it'll help you get some followers, hopefully. And that way we can all help each other. So that's an idea I had, a little incentive. The current top donator will always be in my Twitter profile, and donations of any sort will get a shout out on Twitter and a thank you. So there we go, guys. Incentivizing this motherfucker. There I go. African American Will coming back at the end of the podcast. You know what else rhymes with back? Black, which is what I am. Quit calling me an African American man. That's me talking. The character, not Will. Will's just a white guy who's not allowed to say shit. Alright, motherfuckers. That's it for this week's show. Ended with slightly a racist impression, but the impression black comics do of white guys was pretty racist too, right? Am I right about right, fellas? So, anyway, that's the podcast for this week. Thank you, motherfuckers, for listening. If no one told you they love you today, I do. Peace out. Whoa, fuck. My fucking ears. Test. Quiet the fuck down. Testing. Biggity boom 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 boom. Bibbidi boom boom. Test, test, test. This is me talking. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Ba ba da boop boop bitty bitty boo. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Should I do an advertisement at the beginning? I think I should. Test, test, test. I don't even know if I fucking recorded that ad that I just recorded. Test, 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 testing, testing. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. It's way too quiet. It's way too quiet out here. 1, 1, 1, 1. There we go. 1, 2, 3.